Welcome all sports fans, YouTubers, Facebookers, all social media across the nation. Uneducated Network on YouTube presents Uneducated Sports Talk. I'm your host, Carlos Clayton. And before we get into our show, please, if you haven't liked and subscribed to Uneducated Network and subscribe to Uneducated Sports Talk, both on YouTube, it's more than just a YouTube channel. We are real life. So that being said, please subscribe to Uneducated Network on YouTube and Uneducated Sports Talk. Let's get right into it. Hey, the NBA playoffs is finally among us. We are super excited. This has to be the first year in a long time where I'm actually excited for the playoffs. There's actually a chance where we can get some crazy upsets. There's a chance that we can actually get, a decent playoff run. I'm talking multiple games, multiple series going into 6 and 7 games. Because as of late, maybe the last decade or so, we've always known the foregone conclusion of the NBA Finals. It's gonna be this team out the East and this team out the West. We've known that for a while now, and it kind of gets dull. So this year, I'm glad that more teams have come up and show they have a lot more heart. And we all know the West is crazy, and the East for a certain team is going to get a lot crazier than we expected. So that being said, let's get into the West first. Have the number 8 Minnesota Timberwolves. They defeated the Denver Nuggets. It was a play-in, a win-and-you're-in kind of game. I'm surprised they didn't get a lot more hype because of the college tournament, the one and done rules, and that was a great game with the Timberwolves winning the overtime to advance to the NBA playoffs. They're the number 8 seed, and they will face the Houston Rockets. Also, number 7 seed San Antonio Spurs will face the Golden State Warriors. The Spurs got smacked up by the Pelicans, which basically had them dropping to the 7th seed to face a Golden State team that it's probably going to be without Steph Curry. So there's always a method or madness to Greg Popovich. We'll talk about that pretty soon. Number 6, the New Orleans Pelicans. They're going to face the Portland Trailblazers, the number 3 seed. And at number 5, probably the most interesting matchup of them all, the Utah Jazz, number 5, at number 4, Oklahoma City. That's going to be something very interesting to talk about. So let's focus on the West before we get into these. Let's talk about that. I want to talk about Minnesota at Houston. It is crazy because Houston is the number 1 seed and Golden State's the number 2 seed. But Houston, it looks like they have the harder challenge ahead of them to go to the NBA Finals or to make it to the Western Conference Finals. One, they're facing the number 8 seed Minnesota Timberwolves, and this team is not your typical number 8 seed. Yes, they won 47 games, but they could have won a lot more games because of Jimmy Butler was hurt for for a good little period of the season. I'll tell you that right now. So that's going to be a very tough challenge, and man, I'm still going to give the edge to Houston because they have the home court advantage. I believe they did sweep them in the series. I believe they did. If not, they were 3-1. But this team with the Tom Thibodeau, and then you got hard-nosed guys like Carl Anthony Towns. Then you have Jimmy Butler, and then you also have you got Derrick Rose who's going to be off the bench trying to make moves. Taj Gibson. So it's basically the Bulls of 2009 and the Bulls of 2013. Excuse me. Versus the Houston Rockets team. So it's going to be very interesting to see. That is a very tough matchup because Minnesota should be like a number 5 seed, maybe number 4 seed. They're that good, but with the injuries to Jimmy Butler earlier in the season or later on in the season, they kind of falter. So I have Houston win this, and I gotta say it's going to 7. I believe Houston wins 4 games to 3. I think Minnesota's going to be a very tough out for this Rockets team. That's a tough number 8 seed. It's probably the toughest 8 seed I've seen in a while. Number 7, San Antonio Spurs at the Golden State Warriors. Golden State and San Antonio pretty much both lucked out. I said earlier if Golden State had to get an opponent without Steph Curry, it had to be the San Antonio Spurs because they're without their best player, Kawhi Leonard, who might not be there long. We have no idea. But Golden State kind of hopped in and lucked in, not lucked in, but kind of hopped in on one leg into the playoffs. But I always said this, they were just ready for the playoffs. The regular season, they had the number 2 seed locked up for a while now. And so I don't really blame them for coming out the way they did. But also in San Antonio's favor, there's no Steph Curry, most likely for the first round. So right there, you have at least a chance. Now, if you had Kawhi Leonard on your team there, they would definitely win. They wouldn't be in the 7th seed, first of all. They might have been number 2 or 3 seed. Or number 1, you never know. But San Antonio has a great match against Golden State, and Golden State lucked out because they're facing the San Antonio Spurs team that isn't the same San Antonio Spurs team that we've seen. It's the first time in, 21 years they have not reached 50 wins in a season. They did 47. And It's been a while. It's probably the first time San Antonio has not had home court advantage in the first round. So there's a different kind of Spurs team, and Golden State is lucky to have that team because if they face maybe a Utah team or Oklahoma City team, that'd have been very dangerous for the Golden State Warriors. But I had the Warriors winning in this. Uh, Another close one, 4 games to 3. Uh, I have Warriors winning that 4-3. Not having the home court advantage. Maybe Steph Curry plays in that last game 7. I'm not sure. Uh, so, number 6, New Orleans Pelicans at the Portland Trailblazers. And, man, if they had DeMarcus Boogie Cousins for this Pelicans team, they would not only not be the 6th seed, they might be the 3rd seed, maybe a 2nd seed. They were playing that well when Cousins got hurt. So, Anthony Davis, they get the 6th seed, avoid the Warriors, which they probably shouldn't have tried to avoid, but they smashed the Pelicans. But then you had a chance to go to the 8th seed if you lost, so I understand why they played tough. But they face a red-hot Portland Trailblazers team. Yes, we've heard about Houston and Golden State and OKC there sometimes, even Utah sometimes, but we don't give enough credit to Portland what they've done this year. They are a really good team. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to be a very tough matchup for New Orleans. Anthony Davis is a one-man band. Rajon Rondo's been playing pretty good though over the last few months. So that's been because they had a chance. They were going low at one point. I think just last week they're the 8th seed. Could have been out. So was a lot of teams. Denver wanted to be in that team that was bumped out, and they won 46 games. So that's crazy. New Orleans and Portland. That's going to go to Portland. I say Portland wins the series 4 games to 2. I see how I don't see how New Orleans stops Lillard and C.J. McCollum. That duo right there is nasty, and they've gotten better. The big man is back, playing very well. So we'll see. And then the final one in the West, the number 5 seed, Utah Jazz at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Utah could have had a home court advantage if they would have beat Portland the last game of the season. It did not happen. Oklahoma City, they beat their opponent, the Grizzlies, and that made them the 4 seed and Utah the 5 seed. That's going to be probably the most interesting matchup of them all, and which it should be because 4 and 5 seeds are always pretty much similar. It's going to be a great series, I believe. Utah is a beast at home. Oklahoma City has the star power. Maybe this is time for Paul George and Carmelo Anthony to finally do some damage, especially Carmelo because he's been struggling all year. But I think that if they get all the pieces together, they were not built for the regular season. This team was built for the playoffs. They were built for the playoffs. So, but Utah with Donovan Mitchell, man, who could be Rookie of the Year, but my vote will go to Ben Simmons. But Donovan Mitchell's been playing lights out for this Jazz team, and they've been playing lights out with Rudy Gobert and Ingles, and all those guys are looking pretty good. And you thought that with Gordon Hayward leaving and Joe Johnson leaving, and those kind of pieces, that Utah would not even make the playoffs. I surely did not have them in the playoffs. I know that. Donovan Mitchell at 13 overall pick in the draft last year, he has been a surprise. He's been doing well, and I mean he can light people up, and it gives a little breath of fresh air. I think this also goes 7 games. Oklahoma City wins it in 7 games. So I'm hoping all these go to Game 7 and Portland and New Orleans go to Game 6. It's just that's how close these seeds are. That's how close these games are. With you have a Steph Curry that's not on the Golden State Warriors. Now you have trouble going on. So you have a Minnesota team that shouldn't be an 8 seed. They play more like a 5 seed or a 4 seed playing against Houston. So it's going to be very tough. And Houston has a very tough road to go in this Western Conference. So let's go on to the Eastern Conference. We have the number 8 seed Washington Wizards at the number 1 seed Toronto Raptors. It's going to be tough. Toronto has been playing very well. They kind of limped into the playoffs, but overall, I mean, they almost won 60 games, 59 games they won this year, and they've been looking like the team to quote-unquote beat. Top 5 offense, top 5 defense. Those are usually your recipe for going to the finals. But also, they have the kryptonite. It's a guy named LeBron James. Toronto and Washington. Washington, I don't know what's wrong with them. John Wall missed a good chunk of the year, but at one point these guys were talking about they were the best team or the team to beat. People were scared to go play them, and now I'm like, John Wall and Bradley Beal just aren't really clicking for this team. And John Wall's a guy, but he makes some kind of boneheaded plays every now and then towards the end of the game. And their late game execution has to get better for them. But I do see them getting off 2 victories in this series. I have Toronto winning 4 games to 2. But Toronto's got to prove it me, man. If they want to go to the finals, they have to prove it. They got to show me. I will not believe it until I see it one bit. So I have Toronto winning that 4 games to 2. Milwaukee at Boston. That's going to be a crazy one. No Kyrie Irving, no Gordon Hayward, obviously, to start the year off. And I think Boston's still going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee, just seeing them is like, you don't know they have so much potential, especially in Giannis, to be a dominant team. But their outside shooting isn't the best. Outside of Middleton, they really don't have any outside shooting. Boston, their head coach is the difference. Their head coach is the difference. Brad Stevens, he is going to make that team fight for everything they got. I think Boston wins this 4-3. I think they win in Game 7. Boston is, they're going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks with or without Kyrie, I believe. They play so well as a unit under Brad Stevens. He's probably the best coach in the game besides Greg Popovich. When we talk about X's and O's and how to have team camaraderie and how to set plays out of timeouts, that kind of stuff. And Brad Stevens is that guy, and he has been that good. If only he had all his star power every single year. Last year, IT was out for the conference finals after Game 1. So, I mean, if you give this guy talent, he's going to make it happen. And I think Boston, even though they have no quote-unquote talent with Kyrie Irving being gone, you still have some good guys on there that you can build around. I see them beating the Milwaukee Bucks 4-3. It's going to be a good series. Miami Heat at the Philadelphia 76ers. And, man, this couldn't have been a worse nightmare for the Philadelphia 76ers. They're right on a 16-game winning streak, the hottest team in the NBA. And yes, some of those games were against teams that are kind of tanking, but still, you got to win. And that shows you how good of a team they are, that they go in there and they beat the teams that are lower than them. That's what you're supposed to do if you're a good team. So, but during that stretch, they beat the Cavaliers, they beat the Nuggets, beat the Timberwolves. So, I mean, no knock on them at all. This team is really good. But, man, I feel like Miami, it's just a bad matchup for Philadelphia. Game 1 has already been announced. No Joel Embiid for Game 1. So that right there, Hassan Whiteside, if he wants to be known as the big dog on the block, he's got to take over this Game 1. And I think if Miami takes over Game 1, Miami will win the series, in my opinion. And I believe they will take Game 1. Unfortunately, I have Miami winning in 6, 4-2. I really hope I'm wrong because I'm rooting for Philadelphia. I mean, they're the young underdog guys. But I just think this is the one matchup. If they would have faced Washington, faced Milwaukee, I would have faced Indiana maybe. I would have definitely had Philadelphia winning this series, but I guess Miami is kind of tough. This can go back and forth. I think Philly should win, but in my mind, I'm thinking Miami's going to pull the upset off and beat the Philadelphia 76ers 4-2. But who knows? If Joel Embiid comes back in Game 2 and just is the same Joel Embiid, well, there we go. Because there's a difference between regular season and there's playoffs. Now, Philadelphia has shown over this course of the 16-game winning streak they had some tense moments, especially against Cleveland. And in the course, the game against Milwaukee, whether Milwaukee was tanking or not, it was still a big game for both teams, in my opinion. And they dominated at home. So if their three-point shooters can come out, they have a chance against Miami. But I'm still going with the Heat if they pull off Game 1. Now, if Philadelphia wins Game 1, I think all bets are off. Philly will win that series. So I'm going to go ahead and say this. Whoever wins Game 1 of the series against Miami and Philadelphia will win the series. How about that? So, but right now I'm going to say Miami wins, and they win the series 4-2. And the last one, the Indiana Pacers at the Cleveland Cavaliers. And this one is going to be good. This is probably Cleveland's, I'm not going to say worst nightmare matchup, but it's a very tough Indiana team. Cleveland, the reason why LeBron James played all 82 games, everyone's making a big fuss about it. Oh, he finally played 82 games. He played 82 games because he had to. He had to. We all know over the last 7 years, they've been comfortable either in the 1 seed or the 2 seed. 1 seed or 2 seed. They really don't care. The 4 seed is a little different. 4 seed is different. And like Bill Parcells, or the football coach in the NFL, he used to say, you are what your record is. Cleveland's the 4th seed in the East. Now, they're the 2 seed, 3 seed, whatever. That means they had but a 4 seed, that's kind of tough. That lets you know this isn't the same Cleveland Cavaliers or LeBron James-led team that we're used to. 4 seed is tough. They had the toughest route, in my opinion. Think about this. You got to beat Indiana, who's a very, there's no more Paul George. We all know who won that trade. The Pacers won that trade. Victor Oladipo's been balling. Miles Turner's been balling. Those guys have been really good, and they aren't really afraid. There's some teams that psychologically that are just scared of LeBron James. This Indiana team isn't scared of LeBron James. I can tell you that right now. I do have the Cavaliers winning this series 4-2, but it's going to be tough. Indiana, is going to be out there scrapping for everything. And I would not be shocked if Indiana does get a game one victory. But either way, Cleveland does advance. But hear me out. If Cleveland beats Indiana, they got to face most likely the number one seed in Toronto. And if they beat that, then most likely you're gonna face either a Miami team where LeBron James is like, that's Miami, or a Philadelphia team where Miami or where LeBron James, is playing against the young cats. Their best case scenario is if they play Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals without Kyrie, then that's definitely in their advantage. But Boston has to do some work too if they want to get out there. So it's gonna be very tough sledding for the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James. This is probably gonna be his toughest route to the NBA Finals if he gets there. And look, if he gets there as a fourth seed, if he gets there as a fourth seed, and this route where you gotta face Toronto, where you gotta face Indiana, where you gotta face maybe Philly or Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals, that is gonna be well worth it, Mr. LeBron James. Now, what it is in the finals is up to him. I have no idea, but I'm super excited for this NBA playoffs for the first time in a long time. The first round has usually been a dud for me, but I'm very excited about this actual first round. I see a few upsets. I see a lot of these games going to 6 or 7. I don't see any of these games going 5. I don't see any of these games going 4. Sweep. I don't see it. I just don't see it. Maybe Boston beats Milwaukee 4-2. 4-1. Excuse me. But I don't see that. I see Milwaukee getting a couple of victories inside Milwaukee. So with that being said, I'm very excited for this NBA playoffs. Hey, comment down below. Are you excited for this NBA playoffs? Let me know who is your team and who you're rooting for and who do you have advancing out of these teams. Let me know down below. That being said, this is Uneducated Network presenting Uneducated Sports Talk. I'm your host, Carlos Clayton. And as always, sports fans, you know what time it is. Stay smart, stay uneducated. Peace.